Hello again and welcome back. In this video, this playlist, we're looking at boundaries and ways of protecting yourself. And we're considering how, in this one, for some people, boundaries feel very hard to get a grasp of. And you might not be one of those people, but there are people who really, really struggle because of their early life. They don't know where to draw the line with people. So for many people, boundaries trigger fear rather than relief. And if you learned early that love was conditional, saying no may feel dangerous. Your nervous system may associate limits with um, abandonment, conflict, or punishment, that you were never allowed to say no. And this doesn't mean that boundaries are wrong. It means your body learned that safety depended on compliance. In my line of work, many people that I have worked with have been physically abused, sexually abused, emotionally abused, psychologically abused, and the vast majority of them didn't even know that what they were experiencing was actually abusive, and that's because they didn't know about boundaries. They didn't know boundaries were there. It wasn't unusual when I was young going to school, and I used to get two buses to school when I was just a little tug, but I got two buses to school. But it wasn't unusual for me or for other girls that some old fellow would come and sit beside us and start rubbing their leg, up against you. And as a child, that's bewildering. You kind of you don't feel comfortable. You feel alarmed by it, but you don't know why, and you don't know. Well, does he know that he's doing that? Is there something wrong with his leg? I can remember that happening often, and this is on a public bus with lots of people around. But if you ask a whole batch of girls from the time, back in the 50s, that was a usual experience of what happened. And I think it does still happen with kids now, but mostly they get lifts to school. So for some of you might wonder, well, why is she talking about all this boundary stuff? The whole Me Too movement was about women having their boundaries invaded. And many of them when they were just young girls. When you think of Epstein and uh, Weinstein, and Jimmy Savile, they were invading people's boundaries all the time, and the young people were afraid to say no, and people wouldn't even call them out on it. So, when you consider setting a boundary, what sensations arise in your body? If you feel that somebody takes liberties with you, not necessarily physically, but maybe somebody who routinely asks you for money, maybe somebody who routinely calls on you without, being invited, or you're busy, and they take up your time and energy and headspace, and you don't like to say no. um, when you consider setting a boundary, in other words, saying no, notice what sensations arise in your body, and what is it that you're afraid might happen if you did say no? I'm busy right now, or I'd prefer it if you didn't do that. Whose approval feels hardest to risk losing? Sometimes these are people that are not even really close to you, but in the UK we talk about the tyranny of nice, because it's not nice to say no, um, but um, it's up to you now to do your journaling and just see what comes up. And it would be helpful for all of you if you share some of your responses to these questions in the comments below. It would be really helpful. Thank you. And I'll see you in the next video, and we'll talk then about the difference between setting boundaries and being controlling, because some people get confused about that. So we'll have a look at that. So don't forget to click like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. Bye.